Hey guys, what's going on? Today is our Thursday market breakdown. Jumping straight into it, what we do have is this nice little correction over here on the daily on the hourly for the DXY. DXY is shaping up to be pretty nice at the moment. However, there is a small possibility that the DXY can potentially just spike upwards. However, we are in this sort of squeeze now where we could make our way back down to this low, or at least this low, before we bounce back. Just remember there's a few variations. We are currently in a uptrend, however we have broken this trend quite correctively, so the odds are that right now, given the higher time frame structure, it's possible that we might come back down to retest this low one more time before we go higher. However, I would not be surprised if we bounce off, just some small inflection point over here, or we just go. So right now it is still looking bullish, just with how the momentum's moving, but I wouldn't be looking for an entry right now at this moment in time. I think there is a little bit of a sell-off happening just across the board of US related pairs as well. So we can see that here, that's just expanded a little bit more, and at the moment we're just waiting to read between the lines. So like I said, just give it some time to materialize and it will shape up to be very nice. At the moment it's not the most cleanest structure as well, so it's not one that you can be able to catch straight away. But if this does come to these lows, then we could potentially see a good trade on Euro USD to position ourselves. Moving on to the watch list, so we have Euro Aussie. Euro Aussie has done this very common sort of spike in the evening. So if we look at some news that came out, it wasn't news related. Okay, so anyway, over the Asian session we had a spike up and then we had an aggressive pushback down. It was no surprise that we did kind of come back to these levels after we had that pullback. Now looking at this, there's two ways I'm looking at this. We could either potentially come into this sort of expanding to just continue to go higher, which I think is more probable at this point. However, there's always the possibility that we can sell off. There was an entry in here that I was eyeing up. Unfortunately it didn't play out. So if we just replay this back and leave it over here, and we look at it on a 15-minute, we can see that we came to the top of this expanding, we approached it over here very correctively, we squeezed, and then as I kind of went to the 5-minute, I could see that there was this potential where we had this sort of squeeze. More so originally I was looking at it up here, then I just adjusted it, and then as we kind of just played along, we can see that we just tapped into that bit, and then we had that rejection. At this point here I did kind of just see an entry, so I was like, it's not the best of entries, but in terms of an entry I'm happy with that. So I took this position and almost got tagged out. I think it was a little bit higher actually, to be fair, but anyway, I almost got tagged out, and that's when I took a break even basically. So it wasn't a bad position at all. I think it was roughly around about over here, and I know I was running around about 3% at one point, and I was out and about, and then by the time I came back it hit my break even, and then it is what it is. Then we had a furthermore correction where we just kind of corrected a little bit further, a little bit harder to read between the lines in my opinion. It just wasn't the sort of structure that I was able to just kind of capitalize on, and then we had this little squeeze, and then we just kind of dropped off, and then so at the moment I'm not too convinced. There was potentially this sort of opportunity in here as well, like I said, not the easiest trade, and then we have this sort of squeeze that didn't play out. So when that happened, in the evening when everyone was asleep, UK session, it just kind of spiked up, took everyone out who was in there for break evens or stop, and it kind of committed. So perhaps maybe the 1 hour retrace was the best trade here. This trade over here, and but then again you'd probably be looking to put something in the region of 44 pip stop loss. So I don't think it's very common for that. So for that reason, it's kind of just is what it is. But I think in the case that it's getting messy now, it could just create these small corrections and sell off. So bear in mind that I'm a bit neutral in this area now, because it does seem like we are forming this sort of expanding, but then at the same time it doesn't always seem to be as it seems. It could just be this double top scoop, and now we get the sell-off, taking everyone out of their positions, and then now we continue to the downtrend, which is always a possibility. Always going over the potential possibility of this, just given how this is kind of forming, this expanding could be enough to kind of just take this to this point here, and then this gives us that sort of position that we could look for that nice short. So I wouldn't be getting any FOMO in this area at all. I would just leave the trade personally and just kind of wait it out. If you do get a nice little squeeze and a push up, then potentially it's worth it, but I think given the circumstance of that big aggressive sell-off there, I just wouldn't get involved here. I think the better trade is up here somewhere. So that's basically it for EA. I think GA is also one which is very, very nice at the moment. I think GA definitely kind of in line with EA. It looks like it's basically creating another correction over here, but this is very corrective in my opinion. And yeah, just personally, I don't really know how to read through the lines on this one, so I'll just kind of stay out of it personally. There's a few possibilities of what could potentially happen. This could squeeze, tap into this sort of, it's just, yeah, it's one of them ones. I think personally, if I'm going to be taking a trade, I would wait for price to just really commit and then be looking to go long when the time's right. So that's basically it for GA. Perhaps it could be a mistrade and it could continue going, and this could be the correction here, but I think given how messy this is, I don't want to touch that, to be honest, so I'm going to stay out of GA. GBP CAD, I think GBP CAD is very, very nice. We always knew that there was a potential for this to kind of just get very messy over here as well. We haven't really firmly broken this yet, so it would be nice and interesting to see if we can break it. If we don't, we don't, but at this moment in time, looking at how the approach is, it kind of looks like it will form that structured approach that we are looking for. So let's just wait and see how that forms. Do we get something a little bit more like this, and then we kind of go up? I don't know, we have to wait and see, but at the moment it is looking very, very nice. I think we just have to be patient and just see how this plays out. It will most probably be a next week trade in my opinion, unless we get something dramatic happen. But there is some news coming out tomorrow on the GBP pairs, which is to do with the retail sales month on month, and then we have inflation year on year for Canadian dollar. So that could potentially give it some piggyback volatility to get to these downsides. We have to just wait and see for that. GBP yen, CAD yen, sorry. CAD yen is looking decent. I mean, this one is a little bit of a tricky one because how we're breaking this trend here is very corrective now, but in the form of this flag. Now, this correction is bigger than this impulse, so I'm a little bit more neutral on this position. However, I am aware that, this could be a solid trade. Just bear in mind that even so, and if I just remove this trend line and remove these two lines and we just look at it like that, what do we have? So on the higher time frame, we've tapped into this section here. So we've come in with a 1, 2, 3 corrective approach, but in the form of a running channel. And then we kind of just ran impulsive leg, and then to the top here we are squeezing. So this is where it gets a little bit more deceiving now, because we do have an ascending at this point here. Now from here to here, it's still a very possible little push, and especially with the Canadian news coming up soon, if that news is negative, I think as well that kind of just pumps this up as well. So I think it's probable that the CAD could come up here, but it's possible that it can just drop off. So I am just eyeing this up because I think a trade like this may not be a bad trade, where you can just slap in 19 pips and then potentially get into that position there. I think it does take a little bit of patience, a little bit more than just patience. I think really and truly this isn't your typical sort of first flag sort of territory. There was this sort of messier flag, but really and truly this is kind of looking more so like, we scoop, and then we go up again, and then you know, we could start creating something like this. And then this becomes your first point. That is also a possibility. You know, like I said, it's not really your typical structure. It does come with a bit of risk, but the better trade would be up here, or if we do get an aggressive sort of sell-off from here and we're down here and then we get some sort of smaller corrections, you could look for something like that for sure. You could even get a larger correction. It wouldn't be the easiest to catch, you know, in CAD, but you know, just bear that in mind, that obviously could get something a little bit larger there. So you don't need to get caught up in this area here, because this could definitely take out a lot of people unnecessarily. We are also getting this sort of larger section here, which could be forming as a middle section to this, and then this looks a little bit more cleaner in terms of the channel to the upside. So yeah, a few variations on the table, to be honest. I mean, CAD isn't the cleanest, isn't the easiest to trade as well, so you just have to be on your A game and be sharp with this, because really and truly it can really play with you. So obviously, if you are trading this, please be sharp. Obviously, there is a very good opportunity to short right now as well. It's just, it comes with a bit of risk. So if you are going to take a position, you know, I wouldn't put a full amount of risk on that, unless you're very, very cocky. But you know, really and truly, it's just one of them ones where I think, you know, you take a bit of too much risk there, but it kind of just pops off here. It's so close to the high, it just kind of tags the high and then comes off. There's a few possibilities. If we sell off, here's a good area to sell off, but yeah, like I said, we've got to wait and see. So that's basically it for CAD. I've definitely got it on watch today. We're just gonna have to be hella patient with that. Next one is GBP yen. Now, looking at GBP yen, if we take the low here and we keep it parallel, we can see that obviously this can potentially be a middle section. We can even take this here and we can open up, but I don't think that is the correct angle, but it's always a possibility. I've seen it happen a few times where we do complete on a pattern like this, so bear that in mind. I think more so we have to be more cautious now and just think, okay, you know, where are we? Well, if we remove this for a second and we look at this, there's this potential where it's very parallel. We can tap into this and we can just push above, tap into this, and if we do that aggressively, we may see something quite similar with CAD, and then that's why CAD becomes a little bit lower quality at that point, because at that point there, we kind of just see that they both can come up to the high. So that's one of the reasons, but then at the same time, we do have that push down and that sort of flag territory that we're seeing on both of them. So it does put you in that sort of area where we've tagged this high, we've pushed down, and we started creating this larger flag. Is it an area where we can really sell off? It's very, very much possible. So keep that in mind. There's a massive run on the move as well, so you know, there's a lot of room for us to potentially sell off. I think really and truly, let's just be patient and wait for this, because if it plays out really well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The next one is Euro Yen. So Euro Yen, obviously we know for some time we've had this very long position. We did have a small little entry in there down there, but we missed it. Over here we can see that we've now broken above this line in the sand, so now we are trading above. We are going to this target zone here, so we just need to look for a little bit more of a better entry point. I would more so be waiting for, you know, it could be here, it could come down a little bit more. You know, there's a few areas, but I need something to just kind of give me more of a higher time frame picture. I mean, obviously this was solid, it's just now we need to look for something a little bit more with a little bit more clarity to get us involved, because we're so close to this, we can just literally drop off, and then if we do that, you know, then this just becomes a larger flag to the downside, and then we just cancel off our thesis for the 1, 2, 3. So keep that in mind as well, but it is seeming very likely that this continuation pattern is going to the upside. So EJ for the bull is looking very nice. GJ could potentially get a bit of a bull push, and then CJ as well. I think, you know, there's a very good area to accumulate price to get that solid push up and catch a lot of people out on the wrong side. So keep that in mind as well. Moving on to the wild cards now. we have USD yen. Now USD yen is also just like EJ, you know, there's a lot of bull momentum in it, but obviously USD yen is piggybacking off the DXY. As we can see with the DXY, we are in this sort of this very key area right now, and if we see that on the US dollar yen, we are in somewhat of a key area because we're almost tapping into this high. Once we tap into that high, will we get a rejection or will we continue and go further? It's very likely that we could go further, but given the circumstance of the gap on the USD yen, we could see a sell-off. So I would stay quite neutral with this, but I would keep my eye on the DXY for sure. But I think, you know, there's a very high possibility we can even tap into this high before we come low. So keep that in mind before taking any trades on USD yen. But there's definitely the potential for the bull trades. You know, the buying opportunities are definitely in there. There's been so many opportunities to buy. It's just obviously at this moment in time, we just have to evaluate, but the short will be phenomenal. And I think it will be very, very aggressive knowing the DXY and how it trades, but we have to wait for that. And then when it gears up, we'll all be ready for that. So keep an eye on that. You can even just preserve your capital for really good opportunities like this. It just means that you have a lot more patience involved and you could be waiting weeks. So bear that in mind as well. Euro US dollar. So as I said with the DXY, if we do get that correction and it comes back down to this low, with Euro USD, we might see it come back up to this high. So if it is able to actually get to either override 1 or back to this top over here, we may be able to capture another good selling opportunity from here and then drive it all the way down to override 2 down here. So that's basically what I'm eyeing up now, is that point there. So either override 1 or 2 here on the upside, or and from there we can tap into that to push to the downside. So that's basically how I'm looking at it. This sort of low isn't very hasn't really got much protection on it. The downside is looking very, very probable, but I think at this moment in time there's a strong possibility that if the DXY does sell off and does tap into this low one more time, which is not so probable, but it's possible that we could see that the Euro USD could come up to the high. As you can see, if I invert the chart quickly, how similar they look. And in order for this to go to here, you know, that we could create a correction over here and we could start pushing up aggressively. It is what it is, but if we do get to this low here, that will be a phenomenal entry, or even from here. So just keep a key eye on Euro USD as well, because there could be some really good opportunity for you to get involved. And if I just sum up the risk reward for you quickly, we'll be able to just see, even from this high here, if we were able to squeeze in, and I think the 10 pips would be somewhat suitable with a very good entry in there. We may even be able to even look at something in the region of 25% there, and then probably around about 30% here. So yeah, phenomenal positions on the table, absolutely phenomenal. And remember, that's just one override point. We can aggressively sell off even further, and this can just turn into an absolute monster of a trade. So that's one of the reasons why I think EU is definitely one that I think I'm still going to have on watch next week. Despite if there's any mistrade happening here now, there'll be a phenomenal entry coming up shortly. Aussie US dollar. I think Aussie US dollar is one which I think is extremely nice as well in terms of structure. You know, we've tapped into this override, we've pushed down, we've created this head and shoulders, not the cleanest head and shoulders, and we didn't meet with the left, so it's not the most valid, but at the same time the structure to the right hand side is very nice, and now we look like we might get that aggression from here. So we've basically been correcting and we've tapped into this point here. As we can see on the 1 hour, there's a potential entry as we speak. Probably by the time you watch this video, it may have potentially moved from there. So we have this, but what I'm really looking at is there going to be some sort of structure in here as well? It might be a little bit much to ask for, but we could get something like, I mean, it's possible, but it's not always the case. Do we get something here where we can kind of just, you know, get into a trade here, and then this kind of just corrects a little bit, taps into this, and then we just sell off? That would be awesome for a trade. I think that would give it enough momentum for that to just really push down. But given the circumstance of how the price is now, I think what is very possible is an aggressive sell-off, or we hit the override and we just kind of bounce back. So I think this could be a very good target zone down here. If I just go to the 15-minute chart quickly, and and we have a little look here, we can see that in terms of how we're kind of selling off, it's not really the most progressive in terms of the 50-minute chart, hence the reason we don't really need to really go on it. But if we go to the 1 hour, there's more than enough here to say, you know, we're given these wicks and stuff, it's actually a really good area. Slap on a risk reward quickly, and if we put it here, we want to mitigate as much risk as possible. I think around about 22 pip is suitable, and to the low, risk reward's not really there, but you have enough room to protect yourself. But then if you're trading this through the override, which we're looking at, we could potentially see this push through, and if we do get that aggressive sell off, this can turn into quite a big trade. So keep a good eye on this for sure, because honestly this could be a very, very good trade for a lot of you. It's just right now in this moment in time, it's easy to just neglect a trade like this, but honestly it can be so solid. So that's basically it for Aussie US dollar. The next one is USD CAD. USD CAD, very simple. I'm just still waiting for price to come up here. I think, you know, this has just evolved a little bit further, and just have to read between the lines. I am looking for the buy from this point if we do get it, but knowing that if we can get to this high again, I'll be looking for the short. Simple reason is if I can get in a position from here, and let's say that, you know, I'm able to protect myself, even 20 pips I think would be good, probably even squeezing a little bit tighter. There's still 13% on the table there just to take a trade like that. So really happy to get involved in a position like that. Just have to wait and see. If we get there, we get there. If we don't, we don't. If not, we go back to the high time frame, we wait for it to tap into the low, and then potentially we can go long. That's literally the gameplay for UC. EuroCAD, on the other hand, is one that I think I saw this morning. There was like a small tight flag on it. So if I go to the 15, we had this. So we basically had, you know, if I just replay this back a bit, we had the near miss. So we have this near miss down here, but then at the same time we kind of tapped in here. We didn't completely fill this wick, but at the same time we did start creating this. And I think sometimes this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because when it's a bit too clean, sometimes it's a little bit too clean, if you know what I mean. It's very, very rare where we get really nice flat flags. Anyway, so moving forward, we can see that it just kind of dropped off and pulled back in, and now we're just still inside this area. So it's just got a lot messier. It's not really price action I'm going to be looking at. EuroCAD was looking good at some point, but I just wasn't convinced with the gap as well. This is a strong possibility if we just jump to the 4 hour, which is more than enough. We could just basically just sit in here and then shoot up, and then this can become a massively good trade. You know, from this area here, if you were to, you know, take in a 42 pip stop loss to the high, even that is still a decent trade. It's around about a 7.43% position. So, you know, would I take that position? Absolutely not. The reason being is obviously I'm looking for a little bit more. It could be, you could call it perfection, but yeah, I'm absolutely looking for a little bit more. I want to see price really break below here, but I wouldn't be taking a trade this week now. At this point, I'll just be waiting for that. But there's potentially a very good trade in here for this. It's just not one that I think I'm going to entertain. I just think I would look for that sell-off and wait for it to come back up, but the way that it's been coming down, I think this is definitely the sort of price action I would want to be getting involved into. So keep a good eye on this, because we are basically sitting at this point here. If we do get a sell-off and then push back up, that's your go-to. If it just pushes and starts going aggressively, then you could look for an entry, but I think it will be too late by then. So that's basically the outlook for EuroCAD at the moment. And then we have Aussie Swiss. Now Aussie Swiss honestly was my favorited pair. I just missed it due to some volatility and just negligence on my side. You know, it's just one of them ones where you get them, you don't. So we basically tapped into this low, but we did break it, kind of giving an indication that we could still push lower. This has given off a little bit of an expanding feel now, which I think is even nicer, because I love these patterns, honestly. If we can tap into this now, this would be more than enough for me. So I don't know the possibility of us actually getting all the way up here now, but if we can get here, honestly this will be a monster of a trade. So I'm basically looking for price to make its way back up here, and then we sell, and then we kind of work in continuation with this. I think that would be enough for me to just say that will be another monster trade. So we'll have to wait and see, but given the lower time frame, it just looks like we might just be going from here, as we saw with AU. You know, this could just potentially be the sort of bit where we're looking at, and then, you know, you can call it whatever you want. We're just selling off from here, you know. So that's basically that. You could take it in with a 19-20 pip stop loss, and then if you do take this position to the low, I think risk reward wise that's really nice as well. So that's basically my gameplay for this week. Please definitely let me know if you didn't understand anything or went too fast, anything I can improve on, whatnot. Always looking at ways to improve the content. If you did like the video, hit the subscribe, like button, and drop a comment below if you have any questions. And yeah, I look forward to catching you in the next video.